This is the intent of this word. God is saying in verse 24, because of the monumental sins, and incidentally, let me say this again about homosexuality. When there's an increase in murder, when there's an increase in lying, when there's an increase in stealing, and there is today, one of these giving up this delivering up is also found in verse 28, where it says, when they did not retain God to their knowledge, God gave them up, that is, delivered them over to a reprobate mind. And it lists 23 sins. But these 23 sins are so common that we can sense there's an increase in murder, or there's an increase in lying, there's an increase in stealing in our day. But we can't really say for sure. It doesn't really stand out. But when it came to homosexuality, and God says He delivered them up to uncleanness through the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their own bodies, and we can see that with great big eyes. We can see it. Just open up the newspaper and read the latest discussion on what this court is doing, or this state is doing, or this people is doing with gay marriage, and just watch the newspapers when they have gay pride. Talk about really being proud. Remember, we read in Isaiah chapter 3 where it says they did not hide it. Man, this is not a sin being hidden. No, people, the politicians, they can lie, they can steal, or the merchants, or the companies, or whatever, but they don't parade it. They don't parade we're telling lies. They don't parade that we're murdering. They don't parade any of that. They try to hide it. They don't want anybody to know about it. But when it comes to gay pride, we're proud of it. We want everybody to know. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. God gave them up. He delivered them to this. God has in His plan, has been guiding this thing so that here we have an enormous sign. Remember, that was the big sin of Sodom. Remember that Sodom is an example of eternal damnation, of eternal fire, of judgment day, in other words. And just as that is the big sin featured by the people of Sodom, and they wanted everybody to know about it. The whole city was trying to bring the house down. So it is today. The people who are involved in same-sex marriage desires and in homosexuality want everybody to know about it. God gave them up. And the very interesting thing here is that this is the only place in the Bible that I'm aware of this where it says, in verse 26, for this cause delivered them, that is, God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. In other words, lesbianism is here described, and again, it's absolutely, we're proud. We're proud. We're lesbians. We're proud. Exactly the way God said it would be. Exactly. Now remember, Sodom is an illustration. It's an example that Judgment Day was ready to come on the heels of a terrible sin, or the sin of homosexuality. And so you can believe it. You can believe it. If anybody tells you, well, Christ is going to come as a thief in the night, He could come 100 years from now, or 50 years, or tomorrow, we don't really know. They're kidding themselves. They can look at this sign. This is a sign that God has given. It is a sign that is standing out there with like a great big fat sore thumb that is telling the world Judgment Day is almost here. It could happen at any time. And God, in His mercy, has given us a lot more detail through all the other studies that we have done, and we've learned the exact time of it and a lot of details about the Judgment Day. And now, at this time, when we're just about 10 months away from the end, God is giving us this sign so that anybody can look at it. And so we don't have to look at the homosexuals and say, oh, those dirty, rotten people. No way. No way. It's just another sin. But God has selected that sin, because of its peculiar kind and because of the way it has developed in the world and so on, or has not developed in the world until our day, so that you can't miss it. You cannot miss it. Anytime you see this thing happening, you have to, and you hear of another state or another country that's accepted it as another way of life, you have to say, that's crazy. That is utterly crazy. How can that be? It isn't crazy. God is telling us. It is a sign, a big sign. We are ready for destruction. We're ready for the day of judgment. Now, I'm really pounding hard on this because this is a big sign. This is a very big sign. And and that immediately explains and why tells us, well, then we shouldn't be surprised when we read about all the hijinks of the homosexuals and the lesbians and all that they're doing and the victories they are winning and so on. We shouldn't be a bit surprised. This is God's plan, Almighty God's plan. And when God is designing something, when God is initiating something, when God is developing something, you can rest assured it's going to be successful. It's going to be successful. And it is a very successful sign that we're right near the end. And and now I know that I don't have to be a bit surprised when I read about these things. I say, yeah, that's the way God planned it. Here it is, right here in Romans chapter 1. He delivered them up. That's the word. He gave them up. He gave them up. He delivered the world up to this kind of a unique sin so that it would be a sign that Judgment Day is almost here. Just like it was a sign in Sodom that the next day they were going to be destroyed. God makes a big deal about this in Genesis 18. He talks about it in Jude verse 7. They went after strange flesh. And he here sums it all up in Romans chapter 1. My. We don't have to look for earthquakes and all of this. God has given, if you want a sign that we can know without any question that Judgment Day is almost here, just look at the gay movement. And don't pick on them and say, oh, those dirty. No way. Look in your own heart. Where do I stand? Because if I'm not saved, I'm just as much going to suffer the wrath of God, which is death, because the wages of sin is death, just as much as they will. But God is using those people as a sign that we can, and it's a sign that's being seen all over the world, and we just can't miss it. Well,